You're listening to the Throttle to the Floor podcast. Hey y'all, welcome to today's episode of the Throttle to the Floor podcast. I'm your host, Earnest, here today, just myself, but it's good to be back. The return of the Throttle to the Floor podcast, longly anticipated for a while, but of course, now I live in Georgia, things are a lot different, but we'll jump right into it here on this late night episode. There's been plenty of schedule updates that come out lately as the 2027 NASCAR schedule comes into focus, but three main dates I want to talk about that have been talked about recently. First, Chicagoland will be back next year with ARCA, O'Reilly's, and Cup. Once again, not the street course. They tried to work out that deal, but they'll return to the mile-and-a-half track in Joliet, Illinois. But a week earlier next year, not July 4th weekend next year, it'll be June 25th to the 27th with ARCA, O'Reilly's, and Cup. Second, Iowa will take over the July 4th weekend that Chicagoland had this year. They will also once again run ARCA, O'Reilly's, and Cup. They'll run from July 2nd to July 4th. That's right. July 4th next year is on a Sunday. So, as a former Iowan, it feels weird to say that. It's definitely exciting to see the Cup race get moved to July 4th, but, it probably won't stick, but we'll see. It is definitely encouraging, though, that they are investing $20 million into Iowa, first to give it a full repave, and then also to upgrade the fan amenities and all that stuff, so that's good to see. And third, something that came out today, Canadian Tire Motorsports Park returns for the first time for the Truck Series since 2019 on Sunday, September 5th. Cup and O'Reilly's will be in Richmond that weekend, Friday and Saturday, to open the chase. So very interesting, though. The truck race will be after the O'Reilly's and Cup race that weekend, so pretty interesting there. Other big news that came out this week, Connor Zilisch will go to Hendrick Motorsports in the 48 car starting in 2028 after Alex Bowman retires. My question is what happens to Corey Day? I mean, he is Hendrick's developmental driver after all. I mean, it was announced that he's going to stay in the O'Reilly's car in 2027, but what about after that? Is he going to go to Trackhouse and replace Zilisch? Is he going to go to Haas Factory team or some other team that has Hendrick's support, or who knows? But on to sprint cars now. It was a big week in the sprint car world. Of course, as a former Iowan myself, I would know that with Knoxville this past weekend. But it looked like Mr. Knoxville, Ryan Timms, would dominate again as he came in this year as the defending 410 Knoxville Nationals winner. He won the 360 Knoxville Nationals this year, becoming just the third driver all-time to win the 410 and the 360 Nationals after Sammy Swindell and Daniel Lazowski. But the big turning point came on Monday in Oskaloosa. The front row challenge saw Kyle Larson himself slide by Timms in the feature with 4 laps left, which crushed his nose and relegated Timms to a third-place finish, while Larson went on to win for the 6th time in the front row challenge, including 3rd in a row at Oski. But, man, just Timms was not happy afterwards, and I don't really blame him, but he kind of retracted his statement afterwards, but it was pretty heated post-race there. But man, Larson's week was just incredible. He became the first driver ever to win 4 times in 1 week during Knoxville Nationals week, even when including the front row challenge, which in Oskaloosa, which dates back to 1996. He won the Cappuccini Classic on Sunday, then of course the controversial win in Oskaloosa on Monday. He won his Knoxville Nationals prelim on Thursday, and well, the big Knoxville Nationals themselves on Saturday, but that alone was significant enough. Saturday night, Larson was in Richmond for the NASCAR Cup race, where he finished 6th. We all know it conflicted with Knoxville, like a whole year in advance. Larson knew it too. We all knew it. And honestly, he was just hoping he could even watch it. But the skies opened up for hours and hours and hours on end in Knoxville, and it gave Larson a window to where after the race, he flew straight into Knoxville. I mean, he missed A-main hot laps, but it didn't matter because he led every lap from the pole to win his 4th career Knoxville Nationals title, and perhaps the most unexpected way we've ever seen. I mean, Larson accidentally completed a Richmond-Knoxville double, but that's just Kyle Larson for you, I guess. it's just wild to think. It's like Knoxville didn't even get like hot laps in, or they didn't even get hot laps started, like when Larson got radioed in on the situation and Cliff Daniels as crew chief. They were even setting up a whole plan for him to go, and it's like, okay, cool, and then boom, just went out and won. So that's Kyle Larson for you, I guess. In a way, it almost makes up for the fact that he failed to do the Indy Charlotte double. Although I don't think anybody expected him to complete this double. None of us even knew this double existed. But on to IndyCar's debut at Markham just outside of Toronto. It initially looked like a disaster as the track was struggling to even finish being built. Friday's opening IndyCar practice, it had to be moved to Saturday morning while the track was being completed, but at least the race got in safely when it was all said and done. But at first, I didn't even think the track was going to even be built in time. Louis Foster took off in the lead at first. He secured his second career IndyCar pole after Road America last year. But like any new track to any motorsports series, there's bound to be some chaos. First, it was Mick Schumacher wrecking on lap 15. Then Marcus Armstrong brought out the caution in the hairpin, which, I mean, what a poorly designed and yet highly entertaining hairpin. We saw multiple desperate moves, and you basically had to come to a stop in that hairpin. I mean, it was wild in itself. Although Marcus Armstrong, just pulled out in the middle of the track, just right in front of everybody else when everybody's trying to go by on the caution lap. So that was something. Then Scott Dixon, Kristen Ravison wrecked along with the street course king Kyle Kirkwood, but the race-altering moment was Louis Foster himself. He overdrove the corner on lap 43. He tried to pass Marcus Ericsson for third and then clipped the inside wall just barely by like 6 inches or something. And that sent him hard into the outside wall at a very harsh angle. Luckily, he was all right. It was a brutal wreck for a street course especially. Afterwards, it looked like Roman Grosjean would finally collect his first IndyCar win, but it was Marcus Ericsson himself who played the strategy and the hairpin on teammate Will Power right to score his first win in 63 races, his first since the Streets of St. Pete to open the season in 2023, and it's his fifth career IndyCar win. It was got it with a late pass on Grosjean to win with 5 laps to go. Pulled away to win by about 7 seconds. Grosjean's second, his 6th career runner-up finish, as he still tries to get his first IndyCar win. Will Power third for the second week in a row. Impressive there after a really sluggish start to the year. I mean, do we even call it sluggish? More like just a bad season. Alex Palou fourth after starting outside the top 10 for the first time in 30 races due to a wreck in qualifying that he had, and Pato O'Ward fifth. But with Kirkwood wrecking out and Dave Malukas only finished 17th, a lap down, Palou managed to extend his lead even more with just 4 races to go. He's now got a 133-point lead over Kirkwood and a 137-point lead over Malukas as Palou closes in on a 4th championship in a row and 5th overall, which would all be in the last 6 years. A 5th title would cement Palou alone at 3rd all-time in IndyCar titles, only behind Scott Dixon's 6 titles and A.J. Foyt's 7 titles. But man, from one new unpredictable street course for IndyCar to another is this week they race in Washington, D.C. That's right, the nation's capital. They host an IndyCar race on their streets for the first and possibly only time ever. We'll see. In celebration of America's 250th birthday, but our updated standings and race picks. Basically, the situation is if I finish 20th or better next week in DC, I will clinch the IndyCar title. I have a 236-point lead over Evan. He is the only other one who can win the title besides me, but it would take a miracle, let's be honest. Stacy's 256 back, Haley's 265 back, Bernardo's 327 back, Noah's 363 back, Ethan's 430 back, Zane's 446 back. So it's interesting to see if Ethan and Zane can run down Noah or Bernardo before the season's over. But I picked Christian Lundgaard, ended up 6th, just a quiet day. Started 2nd. That doesn't mean his weekend was uneventful, though. He was pretty bad in practice, but managed to really improve his car throughout the weekend. Got a nice second-place qualifying position and held that throughout most of the race, even through all the chaos. So, yeah, that's exactly what I needed. Evan with Felix Rosenquist, tough day, ended up DNFing out of this race as well. There were a lot of DNFs in this race. Haley with Joseph Newgarden, just a quiet 13th, started towards the back of the field, so did make up some ground, but it wasn't really all that enough. Stacy with Will Power ended up third place finish in a row for Will Power, like we mentioned earlier. Noah with Dennis Hauger ended up 15th. Ethan with Kyle Kirkwood, we mentioned, wrecked out in 21st. And Zane with Santino Ferrucci, a solid 10th place finish. But on to the truck series. This truck race started off with, well, everyone's favorite thing, definitely not favorite thing, weather, as this race was pushed from Friday night to Saturday morning. I mean, man, could you imagine if Kyle Larson was running the 7 truck this weekend and ran 3 races in one day with the Truck Cup and the Knoxville Nationals? But only one could imagine. But the driver of the 7 truck this week actually also surprised and impressed everyone. Shane Van Gisbergen, that's right. He won the pole for this race and ran top 5 for much of the day, but it's definitely overshadowed by a certain other driver that dominated this race. More on him in a minute. Ty Majeski had possible brake shake, which wasn't looking too good, but luckily that sorted itself out. However, what didn't was a flat tire with after contact with Corey Hyman stage 2 that basically killed Majeski's day, especially since there was only one natural caution the whole race for Stuart Friesen blowing a tire with around 35 to go. And that's unfortunate for him because Friesen's wreck, it caused his points gap to the chase cutoff to enlarge to 20 below Tyler Anker for the 10th and final chase spot, with only New Hampshire left this weekend to set the chase for the Truck Series. But it was Caden Honeycutt with a dominating victory for his second win of his career after he won at Watkins Glen this May. Led 225 of the 250 laps, swept both stages as his gap to Lane Riggs for the regular season title is at 61 points. But with only one race left, Riggs will probably still end up winning the regular season title. Heim ended up second. He was the defending winner of this race. Of course, he was running part-time for Tricon in that 5 truck. Christian Eckes, a very quiet third-place finish in this race. SVG, we mentioned, an impressive top 5, finished 4th from the pole. And Grant Enfinger ended up 5th. He had a late race strategy going. He was trying to stretch it on fuel, but it fell apart with the freezing caution. Once that came out, he was kind of screwed. Our new standings and picks and all that. Evan still leads the points. He leads by 44 over Stacy, 58 over me, 87 over Haley, 166 over Bernardo, 203 over Noah, 358 over Zane, 359 over Ethan. So they're both pretty close to each other. But it'll be interesting if they can run down any of the other full-timers. I don't know if they will be able to, though. I picked Ty Majeski. At first, it wasn't looking too good with the brake shake, and then that resolved itself. And then, of course, I had a flat tire. Not much to say there. Ended up 19th. Not much to say there. Evan with Tristan McKee ended up 8th. Solid race for his Truck Series debut with Tristan McKee, especially since it was a few days after he won the Battle of Berlin short track race and a week after he won the ARCA race at Iowa. So pretty impressive week for Tristan McKee. Can't really say the same about Carson Hosebar. Ooh. More on him later. But, yeah. Haley with Ben Rhodes, just a quiet 18th. A very pedestrian day for him. Stacy with Chandler Smith ended up 7th. And Noah with Jake Garcia ended up 6th. Also pretty pedestrian days for them. Solid top 10s. Not really much to report there. Same with Ethan with Daniel Hemrick ended up 10th. But Zane really gained a lot of ground. He actually picked Honeycutt to win the race. Like we mentioned, led 225 of the 250 laps. Obviously had the most laps, had the fastest lap too. Really dominating performance. In the Cup race, there were some cars that were also dominant, but not Honeycutt level dominant. But it looked like Ryan Blaney's race at the start. He controlled the first half of this race from the pole, won the first stage. But initially the big story was the commitment line was moved further through turn 4, mostly so that you could see the orange box better, because Richmond had been notorious for having commitment box violations because it was kind of hidden as you were coming around 3 and 4. So they moved it forward, but as a result, the first zone on pit road was 75 feet shorter, and because the zone was shorter, it caused, like, you had more chances for speeding and stuff, since the zone was shorter, the average, the distance was shorter, so the time and stuff it's all like an average time situation. But it caused Ty Gibbs to get a speeding penalty, and also Austin Hill had an uncontrolled tire. But otherwise, there were only 2 other penalties during the whole race after those 2 within the first 35 laps, which definitely surprised me. I thought there'd be a lot more penalties, but the teams did a good job preparing for that. Austin Cindric, man, had a great time to have his best short track race ever. Drove from 23rd on the grid all the way to finish 3rd, which puts him at plus 57 to the chase cutoff with only 2 races left. But once we got into stage 2, it turned into the Joey Logano and Chase Briscoe show, as they would battle back and forth throughout stage 2. Logano got the stage 2 win, and then Carson Hoceforth, like we mentioned, went from 5th to 3rd gear, which, I'm not the biggest expert on manual engines, but going from 5th to 3rd gear and spiking at 10,000 RPMs is not really recommended. And, that just destroyed the engine and gearbox and all that, and left him out of the race in dead last. And, not good there. But there was some late strategy in Stage 3. Christopher Bell and Tyler Reddick, they tried to run long and tried to finish the race on just one more pit stop versus the leaders trying to do 2 pit stops. Tires were definitely a major factor in this race, but after everything cycled through, it was Logano holding off Briscoe for the win. 2nd win of the year after Wilkesboro. That was only 4 races ago. So in the last 4 races, he's already got 2 wins, where previous he only had 1 win through the previous 58 races, which is kind of wild. It's his 3rd win at Richmond, and it's his 39th career win, which ironically ties Matt Kenseth. And if you're a Joey Logano fan, you know how ironic that is, tying Matt Kenseth in something. But this propels, just the last 6 races, Logano has gone from 20th in the points to 9th in just 6 races, which is just absolutely wild. Briscoe, 2nd, like we mentioned, which, he didn't have a bad week either. As Briscoe, he acquired Brent Marks' sprint car team and rebranded it to Chase Briscoe Racing. They finished 7th in the Capitini Classic, 3rd in its prelim on Thursday at Knoxville, and 9th in the main event Saturday night. Okay, technically Sunday morning due to the rain, but who's counting? So, not a bad week at Knoxville for Briscoe's new sprint car team. We'll see how they do in High Limit, being that Brent Marks is a full-time High Limit team, and High Limit's back this week. They go out west and go out west to California and on the West Coast and Oregon and all that. So we'll see how they do. It's going to be very interesting, though. Cindric, 3rd, like we mentioned, gained 20 spots to starting 23rd. Denny Hamlin finished 4th, now has a 115-point lead over Blaney, who only finished 13th after the race kind of got away from him in the second half of the race. But Hamlin's up 115 points on Blaney for the regular season title with 2 races left. However, Blaney is the defending winner of both New Hampshire and the Summer Daytona race, so will Hamlin probably still win the regular season title and get the number 1 seed in the chase? Probably, but, we'll see. We'll see what happens. And Chase Elliott completes the top 5, plus, on top of that, when you add in Larson's 6th place finish at Richmond, of course, before he went on to win the Knoxville Nationals with a really fast private jet, William Byron's 9th and Alex Bowman's 10th. That somehow you managed to somehow get Hendrick Motorsports their first win, or not first win, first time you had all 4 cars in the top 10 at the end of the race since Spring Talladega 2025, which is just wild to believe. But our new updated picks and standings, I still lead the Cup points now by 166 over Haley, 264 over Evan, 336 over Stacy, 435 over Bernardo, 587 over Noah, 699 over Ethan, 866 over Zane. Ethan might be able to run down Noah. Don't know about Zane. We'll see. I picked Logano. He won the race. Got me my 6th victory of the season. Solid performance. Led 95 laps. Evan with Brad Keselowski. Not a good race for Brad. Brad's slim chase hopes definitely took a hit there. Ended up 26th. Haley with Austin Dillon was very disappointing. Came in, won the previous 2 Richmond races. Really thought he'd run better, especially since he ran top 10 at Iowa, which is basically the closest track you have to Richmond. When Iowa was built, in 2006. It was modeled based off of Richmond. The only difference is instead of being 3/4 of a mile, it's 7/8 of a mile. But otherwise, it's pretty similar to Richmond. But yeah, only 19th. Pretty disappointing. Was not a factor all night long. Stacy with Blaney ended up 13th, like we mentioned. Led 88 laps from the pole, had the fastest lap. So solid day, but Blaney had like a winning car, turned into a top 5 car, turned into like a top 10 car, and then the race kind of got away from him. Noah with Chris Buescher ended up 21st. Chris Buescher is having like maybe one of the most quiet seasons of all time. Like, he's not bad, necessarily. Like, he's not horrible. I mean, he's 10th in the standings. It doesn't feel like he's 10th in the standings, but he's 10th in the Chase standings. And yet it feels like he's having one of the most quiet seasons of all time. And it's just weird. Ethan with Hamlin ended up 4th. And Zane with Alex Bowman ended up 10th. So solid days for them. But, they weren't all that. I mean, Hamlin had a chance in the middle part of this race to kind of get up there. But, just kind of a solid day. Once we got into stage 2, it was really Logano and Briscoe's race to lose. And, well, they finished 1-2. But lastly, welcome back to Hot Sauce Hurricane, a.k.a. Howard Gielselzi and Carson Hocevar. I took their 2 nicknames, Hot Sauce and Hurricane, put them together, simple explanation. What was not simple was their weeks. Their weeks were pretty chaotic. Selzy had an interesting week or so. He won his prelim night at the 360 Nationals in Knoxville and finished 7th in the championship A-Main on Saturday in 360, 8th in the Capitini Classic on Sunday. But the 410 side of things were way worse. He had a sleek black chili scheme, but it did not matter. He did not advance to Saturday night, or I guess early Sunday morning's championship A-Main, as he had a hard wreck in the Hard Knocks A-Main. I guess the delayed to Saturday afternoon Hard Knocks A-Main, because they also had rain that pushed that program from Friday night to Saturday afternoon. But he had a hard wreck that took him and Brendan Crouch out of contention early, which caused them to both scratch for Saturday night's finale. Crouch suffered a broken right arm in the wreck, and for the high limit West Coast swing, because he races full-time in high limit, it'll actually be Gio Selzy's brother, Dominic Selzy, filling in for him. Yeah, I'm aware that's a mouthful, but that's sprint car racing for you. It's just, it's all over the place. Hocevar, on the other hand, man, he really hasn't had anything go his way lately. Ended up 31st at Iowa, and Richmond, as we mentioned, he downshifted from 5th to 3rd gear, 10,000 RPMs. The engine was not surviving that. But gearbox went boom, and Hocevar ended up 37th and last out of the race. And, I mean, just those 2 finishes alone have dropped Hocevar from 5th in the points down to 11th. Which, man, that's just wild. And to top it off, Hocevar, he was supposed to race in Tuesday night's Pro Racing Night in America race at Iowa's Marshalltown Speedway, which is only about a couple hours from where I used to live. And also tonight's race at Mason City Motor Speedway, also part of Pro Racing Night of America. But the hauler showed up last night. The car never came out of the hauler last night, even though the hauler showed up. And Hocevar scratched from last night, and he also scratched tonight. Although Michael Leach will drive the car tonight at least, but there wasn't ever any official reason given for the scratches on both nights. Although, then again, Hocevar on his stream said that tonight he had some last-minute sponsor things. So I'm not saying I doubt him in him saying that, but kind of iffy. But tough results from both of them, but High Limit is back in action this week at Selzy's. Actually, I guess both Gio and Dominic's home state of California, since they're both racing this week now. But it'll kick off the West Coast swing for High Limit. And Hocevar debuting a pink car at New Hampshire this weekend, which is technically sponsored by Moto Casino. But everybody's talking about the kisses on the car and the I Love You ILY abbreviation on the rear bumper of the car, which, I mean, it's in Tabitha's handwriting. I mean, they love teasing us about the relationship / friendship / whatever you want to call it. But me personally, I don't think there's really any hiding it, especially if Hocevar wins, which, although his recent results don't suggest it, He finished 11th at New Hampshire last year, so we'll see what happens. I mean, never say never, I guess, but man, it's very interesting with that pink car. I mean, a lot of people like to give crap on it being that pink. It's like, why would he drive a pink car? But may I remind you that Dale Earnhardt drove a pink car and Kyle Busch drove a pink car. So, I mean, Hosfar driving a pink car too. I mean, sometimes pink looks good. And in my opinion, this pink scheme looks pretty dang good. I might have to pre-order it. We'll see. But I'm glad to get the podcast back going. Finally, I know it's been a couple months. It's definitely been chaotic, moving to Georgia and all that. But back on the train's back on the tracks now. We got NASCAR Cup and Trucks in New Hampshire this weekend. With the trucks, they're going to set their 10-driver chase. IndyCar is racing on the streets of D.C. for the first time, and maybe only time ever. We'll see how it goes. Plus, NHRA is finally back. They're in Brainerd, Minnesota, as there's only 2 races left until the countdown to the championship is set for them. So it's getting tight there, especially since a lot of the points battles have really tightened up during their West Coast swing last month in July when they were in Sonoma and Seattle. And more. We might talk high limit as well. But we'll talk about it all and more and a lot of things on the next episode. And that's all we got on tonight's episode of the Throttle Podcast. Tune in on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube. Check out the Chill Photography and Throttle Podcast Instagrams and TikToks. And yeah, that's all we got for tonight's return episode. And we'll see y'all next time.